Commander Lyra stood atop the observation deck, her gaze fixed on the holographic projection of the battlefield. The star system of Zyre burned with the relentless assault of the Krev Dominion, a ruthless faction known for their brutal scorched earth tactics. Smoke plumed from the surface, spiraling up into the void of space like ghostly fingers. Yet, Lyra's eyes remained steady, her jaw set in a hard line. She had seen worse. "Commander," a calm, clipped voice said from behind her. Lyra turned to see Tessa Kai, her second in command. Tessa's sharp, dark eyes were fixed on the hologram, where red markers blinked ominously closer to their position. "The Krev are advancing on all fronts," Tessa said. "Scouts report 3 battalions moving toward our outpost." Lyra crossed her arms, the matte black fabric of her combat suit absorbing the dim light. 3 battalions for 1 outpost. "They're afraid of us." "They should be," Tessa said, a thin smirk curving her lips. "Gather the squad," Lyra said. "It's time they see what apex predators look like." Within minutes, the sniper unit assembled in the armory. 5 women stood at attention, their expressions hard and unyielding, each marked by the scars of a dozen campaigns. The room hummed with the low, vibrating energy of the adaptive camouflage suits hanging in their lockers. The suits were matte gray, dull and unassuming, until activated. Once engaged, they could mimic any environment, bending light and temperature to render the wearer nearly invisible. Lyra stepped forward, her gaze sweeping over her unit. "We are outnumbered, outgunned, and unsupported. And that's exactly how we like it," she said. "The Krev think they can storm in here, guns blazing, and crush us with sheer numbers. They're wrong. We are the Galactic Force's apex predators, and we will remind them what that means." Alia Novak, the youngest of the squad, raised a hand. "Permission to speak freely, Commander?" "Granted. If we're so superior, why are we on the defensive? Why not strike first?" Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Because predators don't strike first. They wait. They watch. And when the prey is exposed, then they attack." Alia swallowed and nodded, her jaw clenched. Lyra's gaze lingered on her for a moment before she turned to the rest of the squad. "Gear up. We deploy in 10. The room burst into controlled chaos. Weapons checked, suits activated, comms synchronized. Tessa moved to Lyra's side, her expression inscrutable. "Alia's got a point," she murmured. "Waiting isn't her style." "It's not about style," Lyra said, her voice a low growl. "It's about survival." Moments later, the squad gathered at the deployment bay, the heavy blast doors groaning open. Beyond them lay the war-torn surface of Zyre, a landscape of shattered buildings, charred forests, and craters that still smoldered. In the distance, the horizon was a jagged silhouette against a blood-red sky. The squad dropped silently into the battlefield, their suits seamlessly adjusting to the terrain. What once had been dull gray now reflected the cracked earth and burning wreckage, rendering the women nearly invisible. They spread out, each sniper taking a predetermined position, sight lines overlapping for maximum coverage. Lyra crouched in the shadow of a fallen structure, her pulse rifle aimed at the approaching Krev soldiers. The enemy marched in formation, their exoskeleton armor gleaming under the dim, sulfuric light. Behind them, a hulking armored transport rumbled forward, its cannons swiveling, scanning for threats. Lyra activated her comm. "Tessa, do you have eyes on the general?" Tessa's voice crackled through the earpiece. "Affirmative. Target moving east, flanked by 2 guards. He's armored, heavy plating. We'll need a coordinated strike." Lyra's gaze flicked to the armored transport. "Hold position. Wait for the signal." Time stretched out like a taut wire, every breath measured, every muscle coiled. The Krev soldiers spread out, sweeping the area with infrared scanners. Lyra's suit hummed softly, countering the thermal scan with a precise temperature modulation. The Krev soldiers passed by, oblivious to the predators in their midst. Alia's voice crackled over the comm. "Commander, they're getting too close." "Hold," Lyra said, her finger hovering over the trigger. "Patience." The armored transport rolled forward, grinding the rubble beneath its treads. Lyra's eyes narrowed. The enemy general stepped into the open, his helmet retracting to reveal a scarred, hardened face. The transport stopped beside him, its cannons pivoting away to scan the perimeter. "Now," Lyra said. 4 rifles fired in perfect synchrony. The first shot severed the general's neck, blood spraying in an arc as his body crumpled. The second and third shots struck the transport's power core, sending a surge of electricity arcing across its surface. The final shot, Lyra's, pierced the cockpit, shattering the glass and silencing the driver before he could react. Chaos erupted. Krev's soldiers scrambled for cover, shouting commands as they searched for unseen enemies. Lyra exhaled, her eyes fixed on the scene below. "Tessa, Alia, regroup on me. Nova, Nia, maintain overwatch." Tessa and Alia materialized from the shadows, their suits flickering before settling back to their neutral gray. Tessa crouched beside Lyra, her expression tense. "That was too easy," she said. "It was a test," Lyra said. "The Krev are probing our defenses. They're hunting us." Alia's jaw clenched. "Let them hunt," she said. "We'll show them what real predators can do." Lyra glanced at her, noting the hard edge in her voice. "Stay sharp," she said. "This is just the beginning." A sudden burst of static crackled through the comms, a garbled message breaking through the interference. "This is command. New intel received. Krev reinforcements inbound. Repeat, heavy reinforcements inbound. Prepare for extraction." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Command, this is Lyra. Confirm target size and ETA. 3 battalions, 5 clicks out. 10 minutes. Tessa's eyes widened. "They're doubling down. They're coming for us." Lyra stood, her posture rigid. "Not just for us," she said. "They're coming for the suits. They want our tech, and they'll kill every one of us to get it." The squad reassembled, their faces grim. Lyra faced them, her voice carrying the weight of steel. "Listen up. We're outnumbered and cut off. But we still have the upper hand. We're invisible. We're apex predators. And tonight, we turn the hunters into prey." The squad nodded, their eyes fierce and unblinking. Lyra activated her suit, feeling the cool wash of the camouflage field cascade over her body. Around her, the others did the same, vanishing into the night like wraiths. The battlefield fell silent, the only sound the distant thunder of approaching engines. Lyra gripped her rifle, her eyes scanning the darkness. The hunt was about to begin. The night air hung heavy with the scent of scorched metal and smoldering ash. Lyra crouched behind a crumbling stone barricade, her eyes narrowed as she scanned the horizon through her rifle's scope. The Krev reinforcements were closing in, 3 battalions of armored infantry, each line moving with mechanical precision. Their helmets glowed red against the night, a sea of crimson eyes sweeping the battlefield. Lyra's jaw tightened. This wasn't just a counterattack, it was a purge. A faint rustle to her left. Tessa emerged from the shadows, her camouflage suit flickering as it adjusted to the background. "Commander," she whispered, her breath misting in the cool air. "Perimeter secured. Nia and Nova have overwatch positions set. Alia's covering our rear." "Good," Lyra said, keeping her gaze locked on the approaching soldiers. "They're sweeping in tight formations. They're expecting a full frontal assault." "But we're ghosts," Tessa said, a hard glint in her eyes. Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line. "Let's remind them." She raised a fist, signaling to the squad. Across the battlefield, shadows moved, indistinct, shifting, and utterly silent. Alia was first to strike. From her elevated perch, she fired a single shot, the bullet slicing through the air with lethal precision. A Krev officer's helmet snapped back, a fine mist of blood arcing through the night. The soldier beside him flinched, scanning wildly for the source of the attack. But there was no one. Only darkness. Tessa pressed her back against the barricade, her hands steady on her rifle. "Alia's getting bold," she muttered. "She's getting good," Lyra corrected. More shots rang out, 2, 3, 4, each perfectly synchronized with the others. The Krev line fractured, soldiers scrambling for cover as their comrades fell like marionettes with severed strings. Lyra exhaled, her focus unyielding. The battlefield was their hunting ground now. "Commander," Nova's voice crackled through the comms, low and urgent. "Multiple heat signatures moving toward our flank. Heavy armor." Lyra's mind raced, calculating. "Tessa, with me. Alia, cover the north exit. Nova, Nia, maintain overwatch." Tessa slipped into step beside Lyra, her form a blur of shadows and shifting light. They moved as one, silent and swift, weaving through the wreckage of fallen buildings and collapsed walls. The ground trembled beneath their boots as the Krev's armored transport rolled closer, its twin cannons scanning the area with ominous intent. Lyra knelt, rifle poised against her shoulder, eyes trained on the transport's underbelly. The armor was reinforced, thick plating covering every inch except for a small, circular vent near the rear axle. A weak point, but a narrow shot. "Tessa," Lyra said, her voice a whisper. "Take out the driver. I'll handle the vent." Tessa nodded, her face set in grim determination. They fired simultaneously, Tessa's bullet piercing the cockpit, Lyra's shot threading the vent with surgical precision. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the transport shuddered, belching a plume of black smoke before its engine exploded, flames erupting beneath the hull. The Krev soldiers scattered, shouting orders and dragging wounded comrades away from the inferno. Lyra's gaze darted across the battlefield. They had created a breach, a moment of chaos in the Krev's disciplined advance. But it wouldn't last. "Nova," Lyra said, her voice sharp. "Report." "Enemy regrouping," Nova said, her tone tight. "They're pulling back toward the ridge, but they're leaving something behind." "What?" There was a pause, then Nova's voice came through, grim and urgent. "Drones. Autonomous recon units. They're sweeping the area, scanning for our heat signatures." Lyra's gut twisted. The camouflage suits were designed to blend seamlessly with the environment, but they couldn't mask body heat completely. The Krev had adapted, and fast. "Tessa," Lyra said, turning to her second-in-command. "We need to move." They darted through the debris, their footsteps muffled against the ash-coated ground. The drones whirred overhead, their sensors pulsing in rhythmic patterns, red beams slicing through the dark. Lyra pressed her back against a wall, her breath slow and measured. Across from her, Tessa crouched behind a fallen column, eyes narrowed. "They're getting closer," Tessa murmured, fingers twitching against the grip of her rifle. Lyra's mind churned. If the drones locked onto their heat signatures, they'd be sitting ducks. There was no time to run, and nowhere to hide. But they could still fight. "Nova," Lyra said, voice low. "On my mark, take out the drone closest to you. Nia, you take the one at the rear. Alia, you're with me." "Copy," Nia said. "Ready," Alia whispered, her voice a razor's edge. Lyra inhaled, every sense honed to a pinpoint focus. "Now." The air erupted with the hiss of silenced gunfire. 2 drones spiraled out of the sky, their carcasses slamming into the ground in showers of sparks. The remaining drones whirred, recalibrating, but Lyra was already moving, sprinting toward the nearest drone with Alia at her side. They slid beneath the drone's scanning beam, Alia's blade flashing as she slashed through its power core. The drone convulsed, a high-pitched whine escaping before it collapsed in a heap of smoking metal. "Clear," Lyra said, wiping sweat from her brow. "For now." Alia straightened, her chest rising and falling in quick, shallow breaths. "They're adapting faster than we thought," she said, voice tight. "They know we're here." "They don't know where," Lyra said, eyes darting to the horizon. "And that's our advantage." But even as she spoke, a new sound echoed across the battlefield, a deep, resonant hum, vibrating through the ground like the roar of a distant beast. Lyra's blood ran cold. It wasn't the Krev. This was something bigger. "Tessa," Lyra said, her voice cutting through the comms. "What is that?" Tessa's voice came through, strained. "Commander, you need to see this." Lyra moved swiftly, Alia close behind. They emerged onto a rise overlooking the battlefield, and there it was. The source of the sound. A massive Krev dropship hovered above the horizon, its engines blazing with blue fire. Beneath it, hundreds of soldiers poured onto the ground, armored and armed, their formations tight and impenetrable. Leading them was a towering figure clad in silver armor, his face obscured by a gleaming mask. He raised one fist, and the soldiers halted in perfect unison. "Commander," Tessa said, her voice trembling. "That's General Voss." Lyra's heart hammered in her chest. Voss, the Krev's infamous tactician, a man known for his brutality and unmatched strategic mind. If he was here, this wasn't just an assault. It was an extermination. Lyra's jaw clenched. "Nova, Nia, regroup at fallback point Delta. Alia, stay with me. Tessa, get eyes on Voss. If he's giving orders, I want to know where he's going." "What's the plan?" Tessa asked, her gaze hard. Lyra's eyes burned as she watched the Krev soldiers spread across the battlefield like a swarm of locusts. "We hit them where it hurts," she said. "And we hit them hard." The squad moved as one, their forms dissolving into the night. The battlefield stretched before them, a fractured, blood-soaked chessboard. And Lyra would make sure every last piece fell exactly where she wanted it. The battlefield trembled under the weight of advancing Krev forces. Dust and ash swirled through the air, coating everything in a suffocating gray haze. Lyra crouched low behind a fractured wall, her rifle pressed against her shoulder. The dropship loomed above, its engines a constant, droning hum that vibrated through her bones. Beneath it, General Voss stood like a colossus, his silver armor glinting beneath the ashen sky. Tessa's voice crackled through the comms, her words terse. "Commander, they're bringing in reinforcements. Heavy artillery, armored transports. They're digging in." Lyra's eyes narrowed as she watched Voss direct his troops, his hands slicing through the air with calculated precision. Every move was deliberate, every order executed without hesitation. The Krev weren't just preparing for a skirmish. They were preparing for a slaughter. "We need to disrupt their comms," Lyra said, her voice low and cold. "If Voss can't coordinate, he can't control." Alia's voice chimed in, tight and urgent. "Commander, I'm in position on the North Ridge. I can take a shot at Voss right now." "No," Lyra said, jaw clenched. "Not yet. He's baiting us. We take the shot too early, we expose our position. Stay low, stay sharp." Alia's sigh crackled through the comms, but she didn't argue. Lyra knew the younger sniper was itching to prove herself. But patience was the difference between predator and prey. Lyra scanned the battlefield, her mind whirring. The Krev soldiers were forming a perimeter, reinforcing barricades with thick, angular shields. Above them, drones buzzed like mechanical wasps, their sensors sweeping for heat signatures. Every few seconds, the sky lit up with a flash of cannon fire, sending tremors through the ground. "Tessa," Lyra said, her tone measured. "Get eyes on the comms tower. If we can disable it, we cut off their intel." "Copy that," Tessa said. "Moving." Lyra tracked Tessa's silhouette as she slipped through the shadows, her suit flickering as it adjusted to the charred landscape. Tessa was a ghost, a wraith in the darkness. Lyra's gaze returned to Voss. The general was still, arms folded across his broad chest, as though he were daring them to strike. Lyra clenched her fist, a surge of frustration rippling through her. Voss wasn't just leading a counterattack. He was orchestrating a trap, and they were walking straight into it. "Commander," Nova's voice came through, urgent and tense. "We've got a problem." "What is it?" "Alia's position has been compromised." Lyra's blood ran cold. "How?" "Drones," Nova said. "2 recon units sweeping her ridge. They haven't locked onto her yet, but it's only a matter of time." Lyra's mind raced. Alia was exposed, vulnerable. If the drones pinpointed her location, Voss would send a strike team without hesitation. "Alia," Lyra said, her tone deadly calm. "Fall back. Now." "No," Alia said, her voice sharp. I can still take the shot. Negative, Lyra snapped. That's an order. A beat of silence, then Alia's voice, tight and bitter. Copy. Lyra exhaled, her jaw clenched. Alia was impulsive, reckless, qualities that made her a brilliant sniper but a dangerous liability. Tessa, report, Lyra said, shifting focus. I'm inside the comms tower, Tessa said, her breath coming in short, controlled bursts. They've got guards stationed at every exit. It's going to get loud. Do what you have to, Lyra said. A crackle of static, then gunfire echoed through the comms. Lyra pressed her back against the wall, her eyes darting to the horizon. Voss hadn't moved. He remained rooted in place, eyes fixed on the comms tower as if he could see straight through the walls. Tessa, Lyra said, tension coiling in her gut. Talk to me. Working on it, Tessa said, her voice strained. Got 2 down. 1 more. A burst of static, then a low, heavy thud. Lyra's pulse spiked. Tessa. Silence. Lyra's breath came hard and fast, each second stretching into an eternity. Then Tessa's voice crackled through, weak but determined. Comms down. Repeat. Comms down. Voss is blind. Relief surged through Lyra's veins. Good work, she said, her voice steady. Now get out of there. But before Tessa could respond, a deafening roar split the air. Lyra's head snapped up as the ground shuddered beneath her. In the distance, the comms tower exploded, a fireball blooming against the night like a second sun. Lyra's heart plummeted. Tessa! No response. Lyra's teeth clenched so hard her jaw ached. She forced herself to breathe, to focus. Tessa was tough, too tough to go down that easily. But Voss had upped the stakes, and now the battlefield was a maze of fire and smoke, the air thick with ash and the scent of burning metal. Commander, Alia's voice came through, low and strained. I'm moving toward Tessa's position. I can. No, Lyra said, her voice like iron. Stay in position. We're regrouping at fallback point Delta. But... That's an order, Lyra snapped. Alia's silence was a knife, sharp and cutting. Lyra swallowed it down, forcing herself to focus. Every instinct screamed to move, to charge into the flames and drag Tessa out herself. But she couldn't. Not yet. Voss was still out there, waiting, watching, and he was counting on their desperation. Nova, Nia, Lyra said, her voice clipped. Maintain overwatch. Keep eyes on Voss. If he moves, I want to know. Copy, Nova said, her voice hard. But Commander, what about Tessa? Lyra's jaw tightened. We stick to the plan. We strike when the time is right. Another explosion rocked the battlefield, sending chunks of debris raining down like shrapnel. Lyra ducked, her heart hammering against her ribs. Voss was escalating, turning the entire battlefield into a burning, smoking trap. And somewhere in the middle of it, Tessa was either dead, or worse. Lyra closed her eyes, forcing herself to breathe. Tessa was a fighter. She'd survive. She had to. But as Lyra opened her eyes, she caught sight of Voss. The general was moving now, striding through the smoke like a conqueror, his silver armor streaked with ash. He raised one fist, and his troops surged forward, guns blazing. Lyra's breath stilled. This wasn't just a counterattack. It was a slaughter. And unless she acted now, her squad would be the first casualties. Alia, Lyra said, her voice a deadly whisper. You still have that shot on Voss? A beat of silence. Then Alia's voice, cold and controlled. Affirmative. Take it, Lyra said. Now. A single shot echoed through the battlefield, a sharp, precise crack that sliced through the chaos. Lyra held her breath, eyes locked on Voss. The general didn't flinch. Didn't even blink. The bullet stopped inches from his face, deflected by an invisible force field that shimmered like a wall of glass. Alia's voice came through, laced with disbelief. How? Voss turned, his eyes zeroing in on Alia's position. He raised his arm, and a beam of blinding white light lanced through the air, slicing through the ridge like a blade. "Alia!" Lyra shouted. No response. Only silence, and the echo of Voss's laughter, dark and low, rumbling through the comms like a death knell. The air reeked of burning metal and scorched earth. Smoke coiled across the battlefield, obscuring the horizon in a thick, choking fog. Lyra knelt behind a shattered column, her pulse rifle pressed to her shoulder, eyes narrowed through the scope. Voss stood at the center of the chaos, unmoving, his silver armor glinting beneath the raging firestorm. Around him, Krev's soldiers scoured the wreckage, rifles sweeping in precise, calculated arcs. "Tessa, report," Lyra whispered into her comm, straining to keep her voice level. Only static answered her. "Tessa, do you copy?" A flicker of movement to Lyra's left. Nova dropped down beside her, her face streaked with blood and ash. No sign of Tessa. Nia's holding position, but Alia's comms are down. Lyra's jaw clenched. "Voss knows our positions. He's zeroing in." Nova swallowed, her eyes dark with exhaustion. "What's the call, Commander?" Lyra glanced back at Voss. He was scanning the battlefield, his expression calm, almost serene. He wanted them desperate, disoriented. He wanted them to break. "Not today." "We split," Lyra said, her voice firm. "Nova, circle wide to the west. Find Nia and secure a vantage point. We need eyes on Voss. I'll locate Tessa." "And Alia?" Lyra's eyes darkened. "If she's alive, she'll find us." Nova hesitated, jaw tight, then nodded and vanished into the smoke. Lyra waited a beat, her breath a slow, measured rhythm. Then she rose, darting through the haze, boots silent against the fractured ground. The battlefield was a labyrinth of charred ruins and twisted metal. Shadows loomed in every corner, and Krev's soldiers stalked through the wreckage like hungry wolves. Lyra's suit flickered, adjusting to the smoldering terrain, rendering her a mere wisp against the devastation. A low groan echoed from beneath a fallen transport. Lyra's heart stilled. "Tessa!" She dropped to her knees, fingers clawing at the debris. The transport groaned as she heaved against it, muscles straining until the metal shifted, revealing a pale hand smeared with blood. "Tessa!" Lyra breathed, hooking her arms beneath Tessa's shoulders and dragging her free. Tessa's face was ashen, her right leg twisted at a sickening angle, but her eyes flickered open, meeting Lyra's with a grim smile. "Still in one piece," Tessa rasped, wincing. "Mostly." Lyra pressed 2 fingers to her earpiece. "Nova, Tessa's down. I need an extraction point." "Negative," Nova said, her voice tight. "Krev drones are everywhere. They're locking down the perimeter. And Commander, Voss is moving." Lyra's blood ran cold. "Toward us." "No," Nova said. "Toward Alia's last position." Lyra's breath caught. "Nova, can you see her?" A beat of silence, then Nova's voice came through, low and grim. "I can see Voss." Lyra's gaze snapped to the ridge where Alia had been positioned. A column of smoke rose against the darkened sky. Krev soldiers swarmed the area like vultures, rifles trained on a single figure kneeling amidst the rubble, Alia. Her helmet was gone, dark hair matted with blood. Voss stood over her, his massive form casting a shadow across her face. He bent forward, gripping her chin between his armored fingers, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Commander," Tessa whispered, teeth gritted against the pain. "We can't leave her." Lyra's pulse pounded in her ears. Alia was a fighter, fierce, reckless, untamed. But against Voss, she was prey. Lyra's jaw clenched. "Nova, Nia, new plan. We take Voss down." "Copy," Nova said, her tone sharpening. "How?" Lyra's eyes fixed on the dropship hovering above Voss, its engines glowing with blue fire. The power core. It was their only chance. "Nova, Nia, get into position," Lyra said, her voice ablade. "I'll draw their fire. On my signal, you target the core." Tessa's hand shot out, gripping Lyra's wrist. "You'll never make it." Lyra pulled free, her eyes fierce. I have to. Without another word, she activated her suit, its camouflage flickering as she moved through the ruins. Krev soldiers swept the area, rifles twitching, red beams slicing through the haze. Lyra weaved between them, her breath slow and controlled. Ahead, Voss's deep, resonant voice echoed through the chaos. You were the sharpest of them, he said, his tone almost gentle. But even predators bleed. Alia spat blood, her eyes blazing. Not before they bite. Voss's gauntlet hand shot out, catching her by the throat. Lyra's vision tunneled. Every nerve screamed to fire, to charge, to strike, but she forced herself to wait. Nova, Nia, Lyra whispered. Are you in position? In position, Nova said, breathless. Ready when you are. Lyra's fingers tightened around the trigger. Now. A single, deafening shot rang out. Nova's bullet struck the dropship's power core, a blinding flash of blue fire erupting from the hull. The ship shuddered, engines screaming, before it plummeted toward the ground, a fiery comet trailing smoke and flame. Voss's head snapped up, his grip on Alia loosening just enough. Lyra moved. She surged forward, rifle raised, sights zeroing in on the gap between Voss's armor plates. One shot, clean and precise, straight to the base of his skull. But Voss was faster. He swung around, his massive arm catching Lyra across the chest, sending her sprawling into the rubble. Pain flared through her ribs, but she forced herself up, gasping. Voss loomed over her, his helmet retracting to reveal a face etched with scars and a cold, hollow smile. So, he said, voice dripping with disdain. The apex predator herself. Lyra's fingers closed around the knife at her belt. Damn right. She lunged. The blade drove up, plunging beneath Voss's armor, sinking deep into the vulnerable flesh just beneath his ribs. Voss grunted, eyes widening, but his hand shot out, clamping around her throat. Bold, he said, squeezing. But futile. Lyra's vision blurred. Air wheezed through her constricted windpipe. The edges of her vision darkened, and then a shot echoed through the air. Voss staggered, blood blooming from his temple. Behind him, Alia stood, battered and bloodied, rifle trembling in her hands. Her eyes met Lyra's, and for a moment, everything stilled. Voss's grip slackened, and Lyra tore free, gasping. Alia stepped forward, raising her rifle again, barrel aimed at Voss's chest. For Tessa, Alia said, her voice a low snarl. She fired. The bullet punched through Voss's chest, his body jerking as he fell to his knees. Blood poured from his wounds, pooling around him as he slumped forward, eyes glazing over. Lyra pushed herself to her feet, chest heaving, as the battlefield fell into silence. Smoke rose from the fallen dropship, and the Krev soldiers, leaderless and stunned, began to retreat, dragging their wounded with them. Alia dropped her rifle, knees buckling. Lyra caught her, holding her tight as the younger woman trembled, her breath's ragged sobs against Lyra's shoulder. It's over, Lyra murmured, voice breaking. We're still here. Behind them, Nova and Nia emerged from the smoke, supporting Tessa between them, her legs splinted and blood-soaked but alive. Lyra's eyes met Tessa's, and Tessa managed a weak, lopsided grin. Apex predators, Tessa said, voice hoarse. Until the end. Lyra nodded, eyes burning as she looked at her squad, battered, bloodied, but standing. Voss was dead. The battlefield was theirs. And as the smoke began to clear, revealing the first glimmers of dawn on the horizon, Lyra tightened her grip on Alia's shoulder and whispered, until the end.